Have you ever lost your job unexpectedly, perhaps due to a misunderstanding or miscommunication? Today, I'm going to share a story with a message that I think we can all learn from. It's quite common that autistic communication can elicit a negative reaction in the people around us, so we'll look at some of the reasons as to why that commonly occurs and what we can do to make sure we're better understood. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Asperger's from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So I know I personally learn a lot about autism and about myself from other people. So today's story isn't really mine in the sense that I'm not the main character. It's about a friend of mine who lost her job unexpectedly just after realizing she's autistic. So even though I was there, my role is more of an observer and noticing what she was doing, her communication, her expression, and how other people naturally responded to that. So the situation is that this friend was really excited about a fantastic new job. Except that a couple of days into the job, she was suddenly told she was not suitable. Something to do with communication and being professional on phone calls or something like that. And since this happened to coincide with discovering she's autistic, she was talking to me about it. She was obviously distressed. So I met her at work and we went out for lunch on what was to be her last day on the job. So as you can imagine, we spoke about a lot of interesting things with all that stuff going on, but there was one thing in particular that really stood out to me. Over the course of the day, people naturally asked, "How are you? How's your day going so far?" And she would respond, "I lost my job today," in a happy, excited tone, possibly with a little jump. And the really curious thing was the reaction that other people had to that response. They had no idea how to respond. They were instantly awkward, instantly unsure and uncomfortable and not really sure what to do. There were so many conflicting messages. I mean, she looked fine and then she just said, "I lost my job." But then she said it in an excited tone. But then probably losing your job would not you're going to be very happy or excited about. But then she said it in such a blunt way, yet she's obviously really distressed about it as well. So how does she really feel? How should I respond in this situation? As it turns out, most people take their cues as to how to respond from the other person. So if someone is saying, "I'm fine today," even though they're clearly not fine, apparently what we're supposed to do, what I'm supposed to do in a social situation is respond to the "I'm fine" instead of responding to the inner sadness and say, "Well, you're clearly not fine, what's up?" So this is a mistake that I have made many times in the past before I kind of learned what was going wrong there. Because when I got mixed messages from tone and emotional expression and all of this, it would be hard to know what to respond to. It turns out that what I should have done in the past is respond to the outward expression of what someone is trying to communicate to me. If I'm not feeling well and I don't want to talk about it, I will say I'm fine and I don't want to talk about it. And if someone else responds to my inner sadness, that feels like too much attention, too much pressure, too much vulnerability. Why is this complete stranger trying to interact with me on an emotional level when I'm trying to say, "I'm fine, thanks, let's not talk about it"? So while they say that autistic people rely on scripts, I've actually found that if I go off the neurotypical script and say something or express something that people around me are not expecting to hear, for example, "I lost my job today," that's not the typical response to "How are you?" You're supposed to say, "I'm fine, thanks." So when we do that, the other person feels awkward because they don't know how to respond. There was a time that I started playing with different responses so that I would try and avoid small talk. And I went to this social gathering, and instead of asking people, "What do you do?" I would say, "What's your superpower?" And I noticed that people really didn't tend to respond well to that. It made them awkward and uncomfortable and unsure, and they were almost almost as if we were acting on a stage and I was supposed to say one thing and I suddenly went off script, and now we're in an auditorium with 100,000 people, and the script that the NT has prepared earlier is not working. So what do? This is a weird, awkward situation. The 20% of people that did respond well, and we actually had a really interesting conversation, and we had no small talk at all, and we talked about quirks and superpowers and whatever they happened to do with that question, and it was really interesting. But most people were not happy, were not comfortable when I went off the script. So the lesson here is that other people can feel awkward if I behave in an unconventional way and they do not know how to respond to the situation. So think about this in a slightly different way. Imagine if she had said instead, I lost my job today, I'm really upset about it, but I don't really want to talk about it right now, so let's just have lunch and this will be a nice little distraction. We'll chat about something else for a little while. All of a sudden, the other person knows what's going on. They understand why there were mixed messages. So clearly, yes, I'm upset. Clearly, yes, losing my job is distressing news. However, I also don't really want to engage with that right now. So can you please engage with me on this level? Thank you. And when I do that successfully in my own communications, things go so much smoother because the other person knows what to do. So ironically, if you're autistic, if you are inclined to have behaviors and communications that are outside the typical kind of range, you are required to have a superhuman amount of emotional intelligence and self-awareness and social awareness and all of these things so that you can help the people around you to react in a appropriate way and keep the conversation going and avoid misunderstandings and all of that kind of stuff. So that often feels like quite a big burden in lots of situations, but it's also just handy to know what's going on. Handy to know why people are responding so negatively to me when I try and be just honest. How's your day going? I lost my job today. Okay, what do I do with that information? Anyway, that's all very interesting stuff. It's a big challenge sometimes to be genuine and socially appropriate at the same time, but it's definitely possible. So I am really curious how you communicate yourself to other people. How do people react to you? Do they feel awkward? Do you feel awkward? Do you have social awkwardness? Do you do really well in social situations? Some autistic people do. So let us know in the comments, how do people react to you? Do they know how to handle you, or do they act awkward and avoid you instead? And I'm especially interested if you found strategies that actually work for you to get around that problem. Anyway, we should probably leave it there. I guess the main message of this whole video, hopefully, if I've got there eventually, is that it is possible to be genuine and authentic and socially appropriate at the same time, but it can be a bit challenging and we might need to implement a few strategies. So best of luck with that. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I will see you again next week. Bye.